Hello and welcome to another episode of Cocktails and Curtain Calls. I'm Matt Austin.
And I am Beth Young. And for the next half an hour or so, we are going to speak to our friend and director, artistic director of ACT of CT, regarding his upcoming performance of Jesus Christ Superstar. So thank you and welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here. I always love meeting with you guys and being on this show. So thank you for always having me and being so supportive of our theater.
We love having you.
Yeah,
we love having you, and the work you do is just wonderful. It's better and better and better and better. It's just great. It's just great.
Yeah, last time I saw you was Nickel Mines, right?
Yes. Yep.
Which I'm so upset I was away for the whole run of Nickel Mines and I could not see it. But Beth said wonderful things. Yeah.
Powerful new show, and proud that the theater that we did it. So yeah.
Good. So good. And really well received. I mean, evidenced by the crowd and the Q&A afterwards. I mean, so many people stayed and were engaged in that, which was great. It was great.
It was totally important for me and for the theater to do these what we called community talkbacks, just because it's such it's an emotional story, and it's something that people are going to want to talk about after experiencing something like that, especially with our proximity to Newtown. And so we were committed to these community talkbacks after a couple of the performances with a panel of experts to talk through what audiences witnessed and saw. And that was a real special part of the run of Nickel Mines. So
it was great. It was great. So thank you. So here you are up and running again. You never take a rest, but doing a show this is one of the first shows I ever saw on Broadway. And with Ben Vereen, and I love this show. I've seen it several times since. I'm so excited to see this. So tell us where you are. What's going on?
Jesus Christ Superstar. Like you, it is one of my favorite shows. I've been a part of many productions of Jesus Christ Superstar, including the 2000 Broadway Tony-nominated revival of the show. I was in the cast. I was an actor in that production.
You were in that run. I saw that production, so I'm sure I saw you.
Wow!
That's so great.
Yeah, we only ran, it lasted 6 months on Broadway. Yeah. And it was not the best production in the world, but it was some of the most talented people out there that I'm still very good friends with. I mean, Christian Borle, Max von Essen, Deidre Goodwin, Merle Dandridge, Tony Vincent, these Paul Candell. These incredible people. And we were so young, and we were just, it's crazy. I mean, it was 22 years ago. But yeah, so that was, so I've always been a fan of the show, and that was my first professional experience with the show, being on Broadway with it. And since then, I've appeared as an actor in many productions of Jesus Christ Superstar, and then also have directed it regionally several times. And, the thing about Superstar is that it has been around since, the 70s, obviously. And because of the almost instantaneous, recognizable subject matter, that being the last week of Jesus Christ and that story of his life, right? That directors are able to put their own spin on it sometimes. And because it's been produced, it's one of the most produced shows ever, right? So many theaters do it. And because of that, it doesn't always have to be the biblical Jesus Christ Superstar. It doesn't always have to be sand dunes and, togas. What do you call them? Sand dunes and, oh God, what's like the biblical costume? I don't know. You know what I'm talking about though, right? Yeah. And like I said, I've been a part of so many, and I've always like dreamt about actually the production that we are doing at ACT of Connecticut. I'm committed, as you guys know, because you've seen so many of my shows, to always rethinking and reconceiving, reimagining existing musicals. It's not really interesting to me to restage a show that people have already seen before. We are a contemporary theater, ACT, a Contemporary Theater of Connecticut. And I always, it's such an intimate space with this that I want the audience to feel a part of the thing and not watch anything from afar. to just sort of have this immersive experience. And so I've always just thought about Jesus Christ Superstar for our theater since I opened the theater, 4 years ago. And so when I was in my pre-production, for audiences, pre-production is the early planning stages of any show. And for me, that starts about 6 months in advance of cast arriving to the theater for rehearsals. I start planning this stuff 6 months in advance. And that's when I decide who my creative team is going to be: lighting designer, music director, choreographer. But it's also when I start to fantasize about what I want it to look like and what story I want to tell, and all of that. And it was like during quarantine that I actually really started thinking about it all. And I was deep in watching The Handmaid's Tale on Hulu. It was in the 4th season of Handmaid's Tale. And I was watching it, and I was just struck by, for those that know Margaret Atwood's book, which was then turned into a Hulu series, Handmaid's Tale. It's about sort of set in the it's like a dystopian, futuristic, but not too far away from, what could happen if not careful. But it's a fundamentalist regime takes over the United States government in response to a fertility crisis, and essentially enslaves women to be like baby factories, essentially. And all it's crazy stuff that happens in Handmaid's. But as I was watching it and watching some of these characters, I thought to myself, surely Margaret Atwood is basing these off of some biblical characters. I mean, like I saw like Pilate in there. I saw Mary Magdalene in there. I saw Jesus in there. I saw Judas in there. And then I started thinking about, in Handmaid's Tale, the government or the community is called Gilead. And I started thinking about comparing Gilead to biblical Galilee and freedom fighters and resistance groups. And then when I really thought, because that's what happens in Handmaid's Tale. And then as I really started to think about it, started thinking about Jesus Christ and his apostles as freedom fighters and revolutionaries in a sense. And I thought, and this really sort of inspired me, and it informed like how I wanted to tell this story. And so I started all my pre-production work, and then just 4 days before rehearsal started, Russia invaded Ukraine. And, and it was very, my set design where I'm setting this thing, and the way I've stayed, in my head, the way that I staged it, this is in advance of rehearsals. And with the Handmaid's, sort of concept, it felt to me like, wow, this is really relevant for what's going on today, thousands of miles away, where people are where bigger, more powerful people are trying to suppress smaller people and silence them, and take land away and take populations away. And it's just so, for me, it's just so timely. And the way that we are telling this story and this phenomenal cast, it feels like a brand new show in a sense. It really feels like a brand new show. And I'm just so proud of it. You asked me where we are in process right now. We're just about to start our tech period. Tech starts on Friday. And then, we open, the first preview is a week from tomorrow, a week from Thursday. So it's exciting.
So I know this is the largest cast you've ever worked with, is it not? How big is the cast?
It's the largest cast at ACT.
ACT, right.
Yeah. And 25 people, and 9 musicians, and 3 children. So 25 adult actors, 3 children, and 9 musicians, and then a big crew and a lot of dressers and a lot of stage managers and a lot of technicians. So
I guess you're saying you've directed that many people before, but with
yeah.
all working with that are doing all kinds of different things.
Totally, because it's the same number of hours that we are allowed to rehearse a show, from our, per our union, as it is with, as it was with like a show like Spelling Bee, which was smaller, or Godspell, which was smaller, Snapshots. And I have to know every beat. I have to know every bit of blocking. I have to know every note. I have to work with my choreographer intimately, all the designers intimately, well in advance of first day of rehearsal, because there's just no time. For, I stage like Heaven on Their Minds, for example, which is the opening scene. I staged that for an hour and a half. We don't see it again until tech. That's it. It's up to the actors to then do their homework and remember it, commit it to memory, make choices. And then we finesse it and light it and do all that in tech. And then we have probably 1 or 2 run-throughs before an audience, before we have our first audience. So it's challenging, but that's why casting is, me being prepared is one part of it, and casting the right people is another part of it.
Right.
And
right.
you have a really wonderful cast of folks. I was looking at all the names, and so many names that I know, but you got one specific person hot off of a huge Broadway show, which is wonderful. Want to talk about that?
Which one?
Are you talking about there's been a couple, but Mary Magdalene, maybe?
Yeah. So our Mary Magdalene is Tony nominee Caitlin Kinnunen, who was nominated for her performance in The Prom, which was on Broadway. She's remarkable, absolutely remarkable. I have Aviance Hoyles, who you saw my Smokey Joe's Cafe.
Yeah.
He was one of the stars of Smokey Joe's Cafe. It's like an unbelievable voice. He's a terrific actor, and he's Judas. He's incredible. What starts to happen, of course, we're not a rep company at ACT, meaning that we don't have, for your viewers, a rep company. A theatrical rep company is when you have the same actors for an entire season, and all that company of actors does all of the shows. We're not that. We're not a rep company. We go into every new show. It's a brand new casting experience. We have a New York casting director, and we see hundreds of people, hundreds and hundreds of people for every production. But what you start to realize as a director and as artistic director of a theater is that there are people that just deliver, and that are that you've worked with before, and that are hard workers, and that are wildly talented, and always prepared, and are people that just say, maybe this doesn't make sense right now. I got it. I know what you're going for. I will get this, and we can move on. And so what ACT audiences will start to see, especially in Jesus Christ Superstars, I think they're going to start to pick out, I saw that girl in Evita. I think she was the mistress in Evita. I recognize this one from Mamma Mia. I think that's the kid that was in Smokey Joe's Cafe a couple of months ago. So that's what starts to happen. And I actually love that. I think it's a great thing. It's not to say that there's always new people, of course, and 90% of the Jesus Christ Superstar cast are brand new to ACT, but you start to see some repeats.
And that speaks very highly of your theater as well, that people want to come back and do shows because you're such a great place to do shows at. So.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, it's people love working at ACT, and they love spending time in Ridgefield, Connecticut. They just love getting out of the city and being in Ridgefield, Connecticut. So it's a win-win.
It's a nice place to be. I just wanted to ask you, because we've talked before about your directing techniques and the things that are really important in a good director, and you mentioned that you were doing the shows, you were creating 6 months ahead of time and really starting to format and develop ideas and so forth. And I know you had said to me the prep was the most important thing, but sometimes your schedule looks like you must be directing while you're creating something new. Does that overlap easily for you?
Easily.
I was gonna say, yeah, that's a lot going on in there.
Totally. I mean, listen, the closing performance of Jesus Christ Superstar, the very next day is load out of the set, which means that all traces of Jesus Christ Superstar go away. The set is in a dumpster. It's just gone. And then that Tuesday, so 2 days later, Rent arrives, and the Rent set gets loaded in. And 4 days after that, we start rehearsals. So it is nonstop. I've learned how to multitask. I've always multitasked my whole life, really. I've had, this is not, we've talked about this before, but I was in dental school, as you guys know, and as some of your viewers have heard this story before, but I was in dental school while being in a Broadway show, and I lived these two very different lives for many years. And so I've always been able to do that. But as artistic director, it's just about like careful planning. But yes, there's always overlap. I'm today I didn't have to be at the theater. I was at the theater for half a day today, but there's no rehearsal today. Instead, they were focusing the lights, and there was the sound equipment load in today. So I was only there for half a day. But what I did today was I had designer meetings for Rent, which, as I said, starts right the second Superstar ends. So it's nonstop, but I love it. I mean, it's what I signed up for,
Yeah, no, it's great. I think it's incredible that you can do this. It's wonderful. It's and it's nonstop. It's not, I mean, you go all year round pretty much. So it's wonderful. It's wonderful. I think it's terrific. And you're having a successful reopening season, really. I mean, it's been busy, it's been crowded, it's doing really well. So that's excellent.
Yeah,
getting people out.
Totally. It was it's been a bumpy because of Omicron, right? It was I felt like when we opened the season in September, October with Smokey Joe's Cafe, it was like, oh, okay, all right, it's getting a little bit easier. And then of course the variant, right? And Nickel Mines was challenging. It was constant, like, oh my God, is this going to happen? Is this thing going to happen? Who's testing positive? Are we going to, do we have to isolate this act? It was like that stuff. And it seems like it's getting easier. It seems like it's getting better. Our union is still, Actors Equity Association is still really, really strict, as they should be, with COVID rules and regulations. We test 3 times a week. There are very strict audience requirements. Anybody that works in that building has to be, including actors, must be vaccinated. We have to wear masks when not on stage. I mean, it's a thing. It's a thing. I cannot wait for the day that it's not a thing.
Yeah.
It's taxing on a theater's resources, both financially and personnel, to have to deal with this. And it's why so many regional theaters across the country still have not been able to reopen, because of the union requirements, and also because a lot of new theater, we're just so lucky living in a community where the arts are considered essential to a thriving community. There are so many theaters across the country that lost their audiences, that were, as young as I am, as young as my theater is, a few years old, that couldn't weather the storm because they don't have built-in sponsorships or donors or an endowment, or and they were just building their audience base as COVID hit and couldn't do it. So we're really lucky. We're really lucky here at ACT.
It's working out for you. It's working out really well. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for what you've got coming up. It's terrific.
Thank you.
So we know that you open on Saturday night, 2 previews ahead of time. It runs through.
Do you have that in front of you?
Saturday, March 26th, and that's through April 17th. It's not in front of me, but those are the dates.
That is right. That is correct.
We trust.
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, it's there's 20 something performances. I don't know how many, but yeah.
That's great.
Then we go into Rent, as I said. We have our big Broadway Unplugged. I forget. Have you been to a Broadway Unplugged at the theater?
I have not been. Matt has been.
Yeah,
I went to see Heidi. Yeah.
Heidi, yeah. So that's one of our it's a one-night special event at the theater, where Brian Perry, our resident music supervisor, who's was a music director of Jagged Little Pill on Broadway, music director of Wicked on Broadway, and upcoming Almost Famous on Broadway. It's his series where he brings one of his very, very fancy Tony Award-winning, Tony-nominated friends from the city to do a one-night. It's like a concert inside the actor's studio interview kind of hybrid. It's so cool. He does such a great job. We've had incredible guests. This one is going to be Lauren Patton, Tony winner from Jagged Little Pill. And so we're excited about that. I think it's sold out Sorry, everybody.
Have to wait for the
But
next
there'll be
one.
more. There'll be
There'll
more.
be more, and there's always a waiting list. So if you want to get put on a waiting list for Lauren Patton and Brian Perry, you can call the theater.
I think that's how I got my Heidi ticket. I got
It
on a
is, I
waiting
remember.
list.
I remember
Yeah.
that. Yep.
Oh, then I'm going on the waiting list. Okay. I'm signing up. As
Yeah.
soon as we close this out, I'm calling.
Good. Good. And then we have our gala at some point, which is in May, I think, our annual gala. And then our conservatory, like right after Rent closes, our conservatory program goes right into rehearsal. It'll be Rent Junior. And they get to rehearse and perform on the very same set that our actors were on. So that's going to be really cool. And then our camp program starts this summer. It's like never ending. And I'm currently right now mid planning what next season is going to look like, which will be announced. I haven't figured it all out yet, but that's what our gala is, our big season announcement. So
excellent. I can't wait to hear. Yeah, good. All good. We're excited.
So check out actofconnecticut.org is the website.
ACTofCT.org. Yeah.
Sorry. Yep. Yes. So check that out for tickets. No tickets to Lauren Patton, but tickets
waiting list.
There's a waiting list. And Rent. So that wraps up the season, and to the gala if you want to find out what next season is.
And the gala is awesome because we bring back past performers, and they will sing from the upcoming shows. So it's really cool. Our gala is always like amazing.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's terrific. That's great.
Well, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Always. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's
thank
been a
you,
pleasure.
the viewer. Go see a show, specifically at ACTFCT.
Yeah, you will
Bye,
not
everybody.
regret it. You'll be thrilled. So nice to see you again. I'll see you next week.